Hi, I'm Kris from Theme Park to Table, cooking up theme park recipes here in my own kitchen. Today we are working on cooking our way through Delish Loves Disney. We are actually on the third recipe, which is on page 13, and it's a recipe that comes from Tony's Town Square in the Magic Kingdom. It is their plant-based meatballs. Let's get started. Okay, so I've already set my oven to 350 degrees and let it start preheating because nobody wants to sit and wait for that. I'm gonna get my pasta water turned on so we're not waiting for boiling water. And we're gonna start by getting our sauce started. I'm gonna turn this on to just a little over medium. I'm gonna throw a little bit of oil in the pan. And we're gonna just let that heat up just a little bit. Now, I'm not sure about all of you, but personally, I've never actually tried the plant-based meat products before. So this will be a first for me and my family, who when we're done, I will be calling down to be my taste testers off camera per their request. So I'm curious to see how these are gonna turn out. So I have told you before that I really am a fan of garlic. You're gonna notice that I'm putting a lot of garlic in this recipe. That actually is not me. That is the actual recipe. And it's one of the few recipes that when I read it, I actually thought, wow, that's a lot of garlic. So to get started with the sauce, we're putting in a lot of garlic. And we're just gonna get that moving around a little bit. We just want that to warm up in the oil and just start to cook down just a little bit. You want to be able to smell it as it starts cooking, but you don't really want it browning or burning. So while we get this stirring, we will also talk about this recipe itself calls for some herbs. They ask for fresh basil and fresh parsley. Now, personally, I have a garden in my backyard, so I just went out to the backyard to grab it. If you don't have a garden, or it's wintertime, and a garden is kind of hard to do where we are at least, I would say the grocery stores, usually where I am, have quite a few fresh herbs on hand. So that shouldn't be too hard to come across. As far as the ingredients for this recipe, I know we've talked before about having a hard time finding some of the ingredients. This recipe I found fairly easy to find stuff to cook with. The only thing that I had to Google search was it actually calls for Cremini mushrooms, which I've never heard of, but come to find out it's just another name basically for baby portobello mushrooms. So Cremini or baby portobellos is what you're looking for the mushrooms for this recipe. Okay. Our garlic has begun to sizzle, which is what we're looking for. I'm gonna give it a little mix around, not too much. Just like I said before, we're looking just to cook it enough so that we can start to smell it. We don't actually want to brown it in this recipe. So, as I stir that around, okay, there we go. I can definitely start to smell the garlic. It smells amazing. So next up, we are going to add in crushed tomatoes. Get that turned down. So we got a bit of a splatter. I feel like I can't work with tomatoes or tomato sauce without at least covering half the kitchen with it, and usually myself. So nothing unusual there. And then we're gonna throw in some salt that I've pre-measured and some fresh pepper. And then that's actually all we're doing to that for now. That's almost the entire marinara sauce. Pretty easy and straightforward. This recipe does not actually call for onions in the marinara. Typically when I make a sauce at home, I would put onions in this as well. But the first time I cook any recipe, I always stick true to the recipe, and then from there, sometimes I will tweak it the next time I make it. So we're gonna leave that. We're gonna let that simmer. And then we're gonna move on to getting ready to make our meatless meatballs. So we're gonna start off with some mushrooms. The mushrooms I've already taken a damp paper towel to. I destemmed them and I wiped the caps clean. So the mushrooms have been cleaned. I tend to use just a damp paper towel and wipe them off. I know there's different schools of thought on it. I've read that if you wash mushrooms, they can get kind of soggy and spongy. And I've also heard people say that that's absolutely not true, and that you can wash mushrooms just fine. I always, I guess, opt to err on the side of caution and go with a damp paper towel and just kind of brush them off. So what we're looking for with this is it says that we want to blend this to a meat-like consistency. It's the same consistency as the burger we're using. So I'm just going to kind of give it a few pulses. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, it's not going too hot right now. Let's see if we can give those a little mix around. Let me grab a spoon. Okay. Oh, this is the first time I've made this recipe, so you guys are all learning with me. So we'll see how this goes now. We're gonna give those another little mix in a second, but let's just check on our sauce. Okay. See if we can get those pushed down again. I don't want to over blend these and turn them into paste or mushroom mush either. So let's see if that will do the trick. We're moving the right direction now. We got one big guy who's a holdout in there who doesn't want to get in the party. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna give that one more stir. I think I still have some big pieces kind of stuck around the edges. But it does say to use a food processor for this. Maybe if I was using one that had a bigger base bowl, this would go a little easier for me. So maybe if you have a food processor, you want to try one with a bigger bowl, let me know when you do it if it actually works better and if the mushrooms blend up easier for you. Okay, I'm going to call that a meat-like consistency. So we're going to pull this off. Let's put that in the sink. I'm going to carefully remove the blades from this. Put that in the sink as well, get it out of my way so I'm less likely to cut myself on it. I'm going to grab a large bowl. We're going to put the mushrooms in. I do see some pieces of mushroom in here that still are perhaps a little larger than what we'd want, so I'm honestly just gonna kind of pull those out. But I think for the most part this definitely looks like a ground meat mixture. Now I'm using Impossible Burger for this. Once again, I'm not familiar with a lot of the plant-based meats. I did some research, and from what I can read, this seems to be the one that people think tastes the most like meat. If you have more experience with it than I do, and you want to comment down below on if there's one that's better, I'd love to hear it. I mean, I have to say, this does look like hamburger to me. So we're gonna throw that in. Doesn't smell like hamburger to me necessarily, but I mean, I guess I wasn't 100% expecting it to. I'm just gonna wash my hands real quick. I got a little bit on me. That's waiting in the sink for a little later for our pasta. Hands a quick dry. Into the garbage bowl. Okay, so we're gonna give this a little mix together. And then into this mixture, we are going to add fresh parsley, fresh basil, and more garlic. Okay. And then once we get this a little bit mixed, we're also going to throw a little bit of salt and pepper in here. And then we'll have our plant-based meatball mixture ready. I don't know if anybody's ever had this at Tony's Town Square before. I do know that when you have pasta there, that all their pasta is actually homemade. They make all their pasta fresh on site for all their pasta dishes. We are using store-bought pasta today, which is actually what the recipe recommends. I'm sure you could make your own pasta at home if you had the inkling to do so. I have never personally made homemade pasta. Maybe that'll come up in one of these recipes and we'll be giving it a shot for the first time. But I've never actually tried it before. I'm going to turn this down because this is actually reducing down quite quickly, which is kind of what we want to see. And now, when I grab a baking sheet, I always cover my baking sheet in foil. It just makes cleanup afterwards a little bit easier. I'm using an ice cream scoop to just kind of grab some even scoops of this. And then we'll go through and we'll turn this into some meatballs. So it does not specify how many meatballs this recipe is supposed to make when I read it. It does say to go about 1/4 cup, which is what I'm estimating this is. I'll probably just do a tray of them, and if there's any extra we'll deal with that after, but I think it's going to be pretty close to all the mixture we have here. Okay, and since I did just wash my hands, I'm just going to go in and grab these and form them into balls. It definitely feels a lot wetter than a ground beef meatball would. Consistency definitely feels different. I know there's a lot less fat in it, a lot less oil, so I'm sure that that's probably going to affect the way that they stick to each other as well. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see how these guys come out. That one's a little big. Take that off. Now these guys are going to have to go in the oven and bake for, let me wash my hands quick, and bake for, it says 10 to 12 minutes at 350 degrees. I'm just washing my hands quick, and I'm going to give this colander a quick wash to make sure anything got in there is out. So we're going to get these in, and we're going to get them started, and we're going to go back to our sauce for a second. And so these are going to go in. We're going for 150 degrees. We're going to start at 10 minutes. I'm going to give the sauce a stir. It's actually simmering down quite nicely. If you can see how far that's actually cooked down. And it's going to make a nice thick marinara sauce, which is definitely what we're looking for. Our water is boiling, which is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put some salt in the water. And then I'm going to drop in, this is about a pound of pasta. I have a big family. I have 3 teenagers. They eat a lot. So I buy my pasta in bulk. So I just kind of grabbed what I thought looked like about a pound, which is what this recipe calls for. And I'm going to drop this in. And now we have about 9 minutes so we can check the temperature on those meatballs. So I think what we're gonna do is I think we're just gonna cut away quick, and I'll meet you back here in 10 minutes. We're not gonna do anything else exciting. I'm gonna finish cooking the pasta to the ingredient, to the instructions, which is just to boil it for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on our sauce that's simmering, and I will see you back here in 10 minutes. Welcome back. So while you're gone, here's what you missed. I stirred the sauce a lot, and I also cooked the pasta, which is looking like, I think it's done right about now. Looks al dente to me. So I'm actually gonna start by turning this off quick. I'm gonna grab my meat thermometer. I'm gonna check the temperature on those meatless meatballs and see how they're looking. They look really good. They look done, they look brown. Recipe says 150, and we are well over 150. I did put this in for the 10 minutes. It says 10 to 12, depending on your oven. Maybe it'll take more or less time. My oven tends to run a little bit on the warm side though, so put that there so we can wash it after. I'll turn off the oven because it's nice and warm in here. We're gonna give this sauce a quick stir. Then, in the very immediate future, I'm going to grab our pasta and I'm going to drain it because I don't want this to overcook. I'm just going to drop this into the colander real quick. Okay. I'm going to give this a little shake. Get some of the water out of it. We're going to go back into the pan. And I'm just going to put it on this burner right here. It's not turned on because it only needs a second. So the finishing touches for the sauce is some fresh basil. When I use fresh basil, I like to chop it with scissors. I have special scissors that I use just for my kitchen. I find that it actually bruises the basil less this way. When you hit a basil with a knife, it tends to make it brown. It tends to wilt it faster. And if you're going through the trouble of using fresh basil, you want it to look its best. So we're just gonna give this a quick chop. And then we're gonna give this a quick stir. We're gonna let that basil cook in and wilt just a couple of minutes, just enough to infuse the flavor into your sauce. Turn that up just a little bit. While we're waiting, I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna give the sauce a little taste just to make sure the salt tastes good in it. That's amazing. Even without onions. I was skeptical, but that's amazing. Okay, so we're gonna grab our plate. I'm gonna grab some of the pasta. Put a nice little bit of the pasta on the plate. There we are. I'm gonna grab a spoon, the sauce, give it a fun little stir. I'll turn it off. We're gonna put some of the marinara right on top of the pasta. I get a nice covering of that. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay. And then I'm actually just gonna grab these again. I'm just gonna put these in the sink when we're done filming. I'm gonna grab a couple of our meatless meatballs. We're gonna top the pasta with them. And then I'm gonna put a little bit more sauce on top of here. Sorry about that, the camera shut off unexpectedly. I'm gonna put a little bit more sauce on top of here. And then for me, I would top it probably with Parmesan cheese or grated cheese. This recipe is vegetarian. I'm unsure about vegan. I don't know if the Beyond Burger is vegan or not. Everything else in here would be. So there you have it. There's the Tony's Town Square plant-based meatballs. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.